Let's talk about what's going on with Ashes of Creation, because this week changed the tone of the conversation in a very real way. Earlier this week, Intrepid Studios confirmed that 9 employees were let go. And if you've been following the game closely, that probably didn't feel shocking so much as unsettling. On Monday, I put out a video talking about where I think Ashes is headed. I talked about pressure. I talked about shortened timelines. I talked about a beta likely coming sooner than many people expect, and a release possibly before the end of the year. And then almost immediately after that, the layoffs happened. This all really started bubbling up when a post appeared on the mmorpg subreddit. It looked like it came from someone who previously worked in HR at Intrepid from 2021 to 2024, saying they were sorry to see people get laid off. Not long after that, Steven Sharif himself replied on the Ashes of Creation subreddit, confirming that 9 employees had been terminated out of what he described as nearly 250 employees. And that phrasing matters. Steven is very careful with language. You really have to listen closely to how statements are worded, because it's often what isn't said that is just as important as what is. Right now, we only know who 2 of the 9 are. Both of them identified themselves publicly. One worked as a system administrator, and one was a producer. Both had been at the studio for at least 3 years. These were not brand new hires, and that's important because it tells us this wasn't just trimming interns or short-term contractors. These were established roles. What we don't know yet is whether those 9 are the full story. We're taking Steven's word for it because that's all we have publicly. But this also isn't the first time this has happened. About a year ago, around February of 2025, Intrepid laid off around 13 people. The messaging was noted to be very different then to now. In 2025, the studio's director of communications, Margaret Crone, stated that they, quote, did not have layoffs. She stated that they instead, quote, parted ways with a few developers because they were not good fits for our project. This Discord message seems to no longer exist, but luckily we have a screenshot. She further stated, quote, a layoff is when you're letting folks go because of economic reasons, and that is not the case for us. That is in contrast to Steven's messaging this time, where he stated these were, quote, part of some targeted team adjustments. This was not a large-scale layoff and not a reflection of the health or future of Ashes of Creation. He further stated, quote, these are real people and friends, and this was not an easy decision. We're doing what we can to support those affected. So the uncomfortable question becomes this. Is this turning into a pattern? Is the start of the year when Intrepid looks at payroll, looks at burn rate, and decides who they can cut to save money? This is not unheard of in game development. Studios do this all the time. But here's the key difference. Those cuts usually happen after a game launches. Ashes of Creation hasn't launched. It's still deep in alpha. And that's where my concern really starts to grow. Compared to a year ago, the studio appears to be under much heavier financial strain. The game still isn't close to being finished. And based on publicly available information and Steven's own comments, the project has likely cost well over $150 million at this point. The Steam Early Access release helped, no question. But even by generous estimates, that probably funded 3 to 5 months of development. Now, laying off 9 people does save money, no doubt about it. If you assume roughly $100,000 per year per employee plus benefits, you're maybe saving around $1 million annually. That's not nothing. But when the studio is burning around $3.2 million every 4 weeks, it's also not a solution. It's a stopgap. On top of that, there's the issue of funding. There was a new UCC filing in mid-January, which strongly suggests a new lender came into the picture. We don't know how much money was involved. It could be small, it could be significant. But what we do know is that Steven still avoids openly acknowledging lenders or investors, despite public records clearly showing they exist. Whether that's pride, control, or just messaging strategy, I don't know. But it does add to the feeling that there's more pressure behind the scenes than we're being told. Looking ahead, the next big moment is the upcoming development livestream, where we're supposed to see not a roadmap for the future of Ashes of Creation, but instead the road forward. Now, let's be honest, I have no idea what that means. Intrepid's roadmaps have been hit or miss in the past. Some have been useful, some have been vague, some have aged very poorly. How much weight should we put on the next one? I don't know, but it should give us something. Even small details might tell us a lot if we pay attention. What worries me is what happens between now and then. Do we see more layoffs before that live stream? Theoretically, if bonuses were delayed until February to theoretically align with performance reviews, what would that mean? The timing wouldn't feel great. Now, opposed to that, Stephen has also come into Discord saying they are actually going to open new positions for hiring, which leaves all of this to be somewhat of a confusing mess. And look, I want to be clear about something. I've always been far more critical of management decisions than the developers themselves. The people actually making the game are talented, passionate, and genuinely good people from every interaction I've ever had. Seeing them caught in this kind of uncertainty sucks. Right now, Ashes of Creation is still in alpha. This is not the stage where you normally shrink a studio, and that's why this feels different. My biggest fear is this: a beta announced within the next 3 months, followed by a release in late Q3 or Q4. After that, a major downsizing, heavy reliance on AI tools, and outsourcing large chunks of development to external studios. If that happens, Ashes of Creation will not be the game that was pitched back in Kickstarter days, or in those early 2017 and 2018 interviews. It would be something else entirely. So for now, all we can really do is watch. The next few weeks and the next month are going to tell us a lot. Who else leaves? What departments were affected? What the road forward actually says? And whether this was a one-time cut or the beginning of something bigger. If you're affected by this and want to talk, my DMs are open, whatever you're comfortable with. I've always tried to be fair, accurate, and responsible with information, and that hasn't changed. I'll keep covering this, I'll keep digging, and I'll keep trying to give you the clearest picture possible of where Ashes of Creation is headed. Because right now, the future feels more uncertain than it has in a long time. If you enjoy this video, give me a follow, like, and subscribe, and consider sharing. And I'll see you in Vera.